All protocols observed. I would like to sincerely thank the organizers for this opportunity to talk to you this morning. Let me first acknowledge the many institutions I have had the privilege and pleasure of working with. They're a good segue to what I hope to share with you in the next few minutes. I also would like to acknowledge that here in the audience, there are many of you who can speak much more eloquently and with more information and knowledge than I ever could. I sincerely hope you can't see how much I'm trembling behind this podium. When it comes to HIV, we must think gender. Not only because it's true that no one can do it alone, and there isn't one magic bullet, but because when it comes to gender, we really have to think about an approach that allows us to address this. In the next 10 minutes, I hope I can convince you that gender matters. Gender matters for prevention, gender matters for treatment. I don't think we've always paid sufficient attention to gender, and allow me to suggest that this issue of gender will confront us, it will confound us at every turn of this epidemic, for the things that we have done well and the things we have not done well. And if we avoid it, ignore it, or fail to address it, we shall do so at our own peril. Perhaps one would ask, why does it matter? We have learned that one size fits all, something that we have implemented and replicated, has not worked for HIV programming. Not for treatment, not for prevention, not for care. But why does it matter? Why does HIV demand a gendered approach? We know that since 2010, the numbers of new infections of those over 15 years old has stayed constant, and our efforts to reach the targets we had set for 2020 are off track. I suggest that one of the things contributing to our slower progress is in part our inattention to gender. We know that abstinence alone doesn't work for any gender, regardless of who we target. Reducing early sexual review, the number of new partners, or new infections. While I'm fully cognizant that gender does not mean women, because we are in Africa, please allow me to focus on the young African woman who still remains the face of HIV on this continent. And the few minutes that I have left, I would like to focus on them, recognizing there are many issues that need to be addressed for men, particularly for key and priority populations. But these will be addressed by others who are more competent. So suffice for me to say just two things. One, that even among the males, it's important to think about the subpopulations because their matters will need to be addressed. And secondly, even for a gender-focused response, like voluntary male medical circumcision, there clearly needs to be more focus. We have done well, but we need to do better and to think out of the box to ensure that the numbers accessing these services do not continue to decline, and that older men and key populations can be reached. So allow me to refocus my attention again on women. Young women, and particularly those in resource-limited settings, have many biological, cultural, and social constructs that make them very vulnerable when we think about HIV. Stigma also makes it difficult for testing for both men and women, but particularly so for women. And pregnant women, making it difficult for elimination of perinatal transmission. Violence, and in particular domestic and intimate partner, compounds this even more. Even as access to treatment has expanded beyond treatment, when we think about a gendered approach, HIV-positive women need access to contraception as part of their comprehensive care package. They need access to competent, compassionate, coordinated care where commodities and drugs do not run out, and where there are empathetic healthcare workers who are enabled to make a difference. HIV-negative women also need their reproductive health needs met and catered for in every season of their lives, including HIV prevention options. But it's not all doom and gloom, because we have had hope for prevention, particularly in the last 2 years. PrEP, pre-exposure prophylaxis, is an example of an option that can work. Among serodiscordant couples, we have been able to demonstrate that we can virtually eliminate HIV. when the needs of both men and women are taken care of, their needs for that season. It could be they want to have a baby. It may be as a bridge when the HIV-positive partner initiates treatment until they achieve viral suppression. This approach has worked, a gendered response that caters for both needs. The Dapivirine ring studies have also given us hope. These trials have shown effectiveness of the rings, preventing women from acquiring HIV, a female-initiated option that paves way for even more possibilities, addressing comprehensive reproductive health needs of women, not just HIV prevention, but prevention of sexually transmitted infections, and giving hope for thinking about how to incorporate contraception into this. But yet we still know from these studies that demonstrated that protection was limited for women who were younger than 21 years. And because the face of HIV in sub-Saharan Africa remains this young African woman, we still need to find options that they can successfully incorporate in their lives and use, even within a research center. The PrEP demonstration studies by the LVCT health team in Kenya have shown us clearly that community matters. Decisions for HIV prevention are not left to an individual alone. Community acceptance and support makes it possible for uptake of new options. Which brings me to the very last point that I want to make when we think about HIV with a gendered lens. Community. In SEARCH, the Sustainable East African Research for Community Health, we've been able to show that we can test whole communities. We can find the women, we can find the children, and more importantly, we can find the men. Both treatment and prevention start with knowing your status. The SEARCH study has used the model of community testing, where we bring a health campaign close to enable people to know their status. We follow up with tracking all those who did not come to the health campaign, providing an opportunity for everybody within a community to know their status. And this allows them to also link into care and also to make choices about prevention. We should never separate the worlds of prevention and care when it comes to HIV. And I think we must make sure that we think not just about legislation, but what is our gendered approach that will enable us to make this possible, especially for key and priority populations. HIV operates in a gendered world, and it responds and thrives because of that. Sometimes we deliver messages without consideration of gender, and we fail. We end up with poor testing. We end up with individuals who cannot take treatment because they do not even want to be seen with pills. Sometimes we address gender, but only narrowly. We stereotype, and again, we end up failing. And financing does not always take into account a gender-tailored response. How can we have a gendered response that is responsive, powerful, but yet positive? If we can do that, then I'm sure we can end HIV for her generation. As a young girl, and indeed I was a young girl once, growing up before the era of HIV, my mother practiced collective responsibility. If one of us children was found in mischief and misdemeanor, all of us were punished. You're punished for commission or punished for omission. You're punished for complicity or punished for ignorance. It taught me the law of collective responsibility. This is 2016. We cannot ignore gender in our response to HIV. It is part of our collective responsibility if we are to end this epidemic. Thank you.
Please welcome back Mrs. Marshall to introduce our third speaker today.
Our third speaker is Maureen, who has been living with HIV/AIDS since the early 2000, sorry. And she's going to share with us her journey, but she is also a two-time award winner for her work with women and girls, winning the Unsung Hero Award from the U.S. Embassy in Kenya and East Africa Community Service Award from the Ufadhili Trust. Maureen has since had another baby in 2013 who is HIV free. Maureen?
All protocols observed, good morning. I am honored to be standing here talking about implications of gender in the HIV response. As a woman living with HIV, this day quickly brings to my mind my journey living with HIV. My story is not only my story, but it's the story of other women in this room and who are not able to be in this room. When I was diagnosed with HIV many years back, treatment was too expensive for me to afford. I knew I had a few days to live, but my biggest scare was how I was going to die. I saw the kind of pain people went through before they died, and I heard the many cases of people who would be found in their houses dead 5 days after they died, or women who would die and their children would be found lying next to them. The hospitals were full beyond capacity, and the only logic was to let those in their last stages of AIDS die from home. While the society was in a hopeless situation, I met this group of women who had a different story. For the first time in months after my diagnosis, someone gave me a different report. When I was diagnosed, I was expectant with my eldest son, and I knew I would either die before I gave birth to him or after. I wasn't sure when. Everyone around me wanted to give me hope, but they didn't have a word to tell me because they didn't know anything else to tell me apart from, of course you're going to die. But these women told me I had to fight for my child. I had to live and live for this child. So while the whole community was giving up, women were fighting. And women living with HIV had refused to let go. They had formed support groups where they supported each other, and they provided palliative care to their peers to enable them die with dignity. After giving birth to my son, I joined the women group to also provide palliative care. I don't know why some of the people in the group were doing this, but I was doing this because I knew when I was going to die, I needed someone by my side. And I knew it was easier for a person living in my condition to be by my side than one who did not have the same condition as me because of the high stigma that was there at that moment. So we met every week during this time, and in every meeting we had to observe a moment of silence for one of us who had died. We promised to be by each other to the last moment. So while some of us were still alive, treatment started coming to our country, but it was too expensive for all of us to access. So we changed our support group to an advocacy movement, and we started advocating for access to treatment. While we did this, we did it with a lot of passion, thinking it was the solution to ending the AIDS epidemic. This wasn't to be, because even after availability of treatment, and thanks to Global Fund, PEPFAR, MSF, and other partners, some of us still died, and many of us got HIV. We realized that between our households and the health facilities, there were many challenges. And I don't think we are the only ones who woke up to this realization that HIV is so much more than just a health issue and is bound to other social issues which our all too biomedical interventions fail to address. Women and girls continue to face various forms of violations, including rape, female genital mutilation, physical assault, emotional and physical abuse, humiliation, intimidation, stigma, rejection, disinheritance, not only affecting our vulnerability to HIV, but also worsening the effects of HIV. We feel this, we live this, We are tired of this, and we can't go on like this. We must turn the tide and make a deliberate effort to achieve gender equality for women in all our diversity, irrespective of our sexual orientation and identity, profession, our habits, and the lack of choice for some of us in the sex assigned to us at birth. An important aspect of achieving gender equality in relation to HIV must to pay close attention to the language we use to characterize challenges. All too often, our community use gendered language predetermines the attitude and that blames or shames. Early examples are HIV is a gay disease, or more recently, the common use of